Hello and welcome to Inside Events, a new international contemporary podcast focused on key issues in events and festivals. This week, I'm joined by Tkaczynski from the University of Queensland, and we're going to be talking about market segmentation in the context of events. Welcome, Aaron. If you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, the organization that you work for, and why are you, for some time now, been interested in the ideas around market segmentation.
Hi, Mike. Yes, my name is Tkaczynski. I work in tourism and events at the University of Queensland in beautiful sunny Brisbane here in Australia. So I have been in this role for I'm a senior lecturer. I've been in worked here for about 15 years, involved in market segmentation and events. Well, to be honest, I loved being in events very much as a youth and young adult, going to a lot of music festivals, going to sports, etc. And I guess I was starting very much with through my PhD. I was actually in tourism to start with. I came from a very small regional town, very focused on tourism, and I was always very fascinated very much about how people were potentially different. And I guess being in a school that teaches both tourism and events, I progressed across to event segmentation. And I've been very much loving doing this, doing research in it for about 15 years or so, just because, as I said, a bit fascinated with a bit of the topic, and there were some areas that hadn't been covered. So I thought, oh, well, if I love people, love researching love being in events, I thought this kind of is a good way to start a bit of a career in this area. So that was how I started getting into it, and I still continue to teach within this at both the undergraduate and postgraduate level, which has been fantastic. So that's kind of how I started. Yep.
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say why they're interested in market segmentation is because they're interested in the people.
Yes,
genuinely a really first time and an interesting angle as to why you would be interested in this kind of business concept of market segmentation. And for those that don't know anything about market segmentation, which they should, but if you were a first year student, for example, how would you define it? What exactly is it, Aaron?
It's good, as you said there. Like Mike, it's probably been around since about the 1950s. I think was the term when I was reading. I did cover it in my PhD, so I had to do a lot research in this area. Look, what I always say when I think much about market segmentation, it's all about basically saying that people are very, very different. They have very, very different characteristics. And market segmentation is very much about trying to work out, okay, we know people might be different in certain elements. What we need to try to do is how can we actually make people that are different, put them into similar or find groups where they might have similar characteristics. And then once we've actually done that, try to design some events, try to design some market communication strategies that we can target people who might best suit our needs as an organization. So as we say, generally across the board, there have been, I think, with segmentation, like how we go about it, we've normally said that you can normally profile people based on their demographics. So that's, who they are, their age, their gender, their income. We normally say perhaps by their geographics, such as where they live. Psychographics, which is, who they are, some of their motivations, interest, etc., and behaviors. So what they might do when they're, in their normal life or when they go to events, etc. So there are a lot of great variables and ways that we tend to split people into these specific groups. So, that's generally, hopefully, First year marketing, a bit of a great subject, but there's a lot of great textbooks within that area that we focus on. So
that's great, Aaron. And so I'm just thinking, you got a small scale festival, you got a medium scale, and then you got big ones, and then you got major events, and you got mega events, and of course, the smaller ones have like more specific niche focus, and then you've got the big ones that have got multiple different
that's
focus.
Definitely right.
When it comes to segmentation at the bigger level, let's say Brisbane 2032. How does one approach market segmentation with such a huge event,
Yeah.
which fundamentally has so many diverse cultural interests,
You,
and we do
you're
it. Do we do it
exactly
well?
right. And thanks for mentioning that. I mean, I'll be honest and say I did really start in a lot of my research in small scale festivals. And you are right that you probably don't need to split people into specific groups for those smaller ones, because most of them might be residents. So they might come from similar regions. They might have similar interests. But you are right. I tend to find segmentation does work very, very well for larger events, because I think what we have to realize is that people are going to be very, very different. Like, as we said, the Brisbane 2032 Olympic Games, which I hope everyone can come to. And hopefully in Brisbane, we've seen that we've had the FIFA World Cup. That's just, we had 6 games in Brisbane, so we did really well here. But look, I think what's really important to know is that we do know that event attendees and also exhibitors and maybe operators, they are all very, very different. And I think with segmentation, we need to realize that we can't get absolutely everyone to come. We can't, there's going to be differences. So what I tend to find with segmentation is it's really, really important to try to work out what are going to be some key people or attractions or events that we want people to come to. Find some variables like maybe their income, particular interests, and then try to work out how, through some specific methods like strategy, that we can try to target the types of people that are most likely to come along to an event, who could potentially provide us return on investment. Because, if we're going to be promoting with all of this massive infrastructure, marketing, communications, we're going to have to try to work out how we're going to get that return. Also, making sure that we've got the right human resources around, all of these operational. So there are a lot of different ways. And there's a few great examples. You've said there, obviously, with the World Cup, we might need to know exactly which countries might be preferable. We've got like athletes, we've got customers. So I'm hoping I'm making sense there. But what I'm just saying there, it is very detailed, and there's a lot. And one thing again as well, you could go through several layers of people that we are focusing on. But I think the key thing is to work out what's our real aim for the event. Who are the types of people that we want to come along, and the people that are likely to come along, I think works well. So it can be quite complex, but there's a lot of good research done within this area for large events. So
completely. Yeah, there's such a great body of research generally in business studies, right? And then people have done a great job applying some of those ideas, including yourself, to
Thank
events.
you.
I've just the big question, if I was in practice, and for students thinking about, having some sort of marketing or segmentation role in an event after they graduate, is it really easy to collect the necessary data to inform what we know about the interests of particular segments? Is that really difficult, or is there any kind of trials and tribulations with that, or is that a fairly straightforward process?
Yeah, very, very good question, actually, Mike. It has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. Look, I'll be honest and say it's not all, it doesn't happen in all cases, but normally we probably tend to get a bit more quantitative number data. Like, you can interview people perhaps beforehand. You could potentially you could on site kind of grab some people when they're there. But what we're tending to find, I think with the advent of technology, there's been some great innovations around a lot of like QR codes, post-event surveys, where we can target specific areas. It's a really, really fascinating area. And I think that digitalization and the usage of technology and segmentation has been a real benefit. You can, as we said, maybe university students, if you were going to be running an event, you could send out like an online survey to a particular targeted cohort, ask them, hey, if you fill this in, you can go on a draw to get $50 or whatever it is, or, you can help. I find that you can get a lot of really good data sources very quickly now. I think back in the day with segmentation, we used to do a lot on site. and try to work out afterwards the type of people are coming. But that might not work if you've got a mega event, because by then people have come. So I think with segmentation, that it is very, very exciting. And there are a lot of good technologies that are available that can help us. Like even like I'm not saying everything's digital marketing and social media, but we can kind of even try to find out exactly what information sources people are using. If you go on Facebook, Instagram, we can kind of, target these people prior to looking at usage, time of the day they go on. So things like this, I think that has really helped us a lot. So it's a very, very exciting area. So, yeah.
I agree. And yeah, definitely there's a lot of improvements to be made by event managers to understand the people who are going and how to therefore program the event in particular ways and synergize that with the destination and work out what they could do inside the destination that's hosting the event, all that sort of thing. There's a lot.
I should also say as well, obviously I focused a bit more on like attendees going along for sport, but like even business events. I know that in Australia, going to things like the Australian Tourism Exchange is really popular. And I know trying to also look out for event exhibitors and, the relationship between business to business marketing. A lot of that, has also been done very, very well. So, so not just business to customer, also business to business, I think has worked very well in this area. So,
and Aaron, what about, we have seen that events have bled outside of private venues, closed venues, into more public spaces, urban squares, parks, and all that. So that are then coming into more and more contact with residents. And so we talk about the business consumer primarily, right? And then you just mentioned business to business. But what about the stakeholder of a resident and segmenting their needs and interests when it comes to being affected by events? Is there stuff on that, or is that still a new domain?
I'll be honest and say that of the research I've done hands-on, I love doing resident studies because I tend to find these people understand that I'm there off, like a lot of them are smaller, a lot of community public space events, they are very much designed for the benefit of the community. I've tended to find that, a lot of the operators, stakeholders love me to come in because a lot of them might not have the financial resources to do a massive survey themselves. They know that I tend to find attendees that go to these are really, really responsive. They're helpful. They're trying to improve the community. So I found that they work well. But but still there are differences. Like we normally find things like most residents tend to be very satisfied with events. They might get the odd, it's a waste of, local taxpayers' money. I mean, I think that's whatever anyone does. But I think, there are different motivations. There's that whole community pride in looking at the local area. People love seeing what's doing. They love engagement. I think particularly post-COVID now, people are loving to get out and mix and see, enjoying people, talking to people. But there's a lot of different areas like socialization. There's a lot of different motivations and small events. I probably have a bit more of an interest in the smaller events than bigger events myself because I did come from a country town and I realized just the benefits of those things. So,
That's great. Thanks, Aaron. And when it comes to, I think it's really, really obvious, if it isn't obvious already, that we should care about the idea and principles of market segmentation in events. Is there any kind of points that you'd want to hammer home for people listening to this in terms of why we should care and be interested in the concepts of market segmentation?
Look, to be honest, as you said, Mike, I mean, market segmentation has been around for quite a while now. And there's been a lot of great research is done in this area. What I would say, slightly different from market segmentation, but I've always thought that target marketing more so, we might split people into specific groups. So we might say if we've got like a major sporting event, there might be, people that are going along for the sport. There might be entertainment, whatever it is. But I think that we're very good at knowing that we can split people into certain groups. But I think we need to do more work in probably understanding which group or groups we should focus on on, because often there might be rank order. Because like you might be an event thinking, oh, gee whiz, we've got this great, food and wine festival that's held in September. But just down the road, there could be 3 others that are doing exactly the same thing. So you might say we've got the same markets, but how can we know that we can attract the types of people that we want? So I really think this whole target marketing, so trying to work out which groups, could be potentially sustainable in the long run. Like I think sport's going to always be very, very popular. But again, I'm just thinking of being topical with the women's soccer in Australia. It's had huge community. There's been a diaspora. There's been a huge focus on women and viewership. So it'll be interesting to see with future sporting events whether this whole focus on the gender is going to be a bigger thing to focus on and target with events. So I think that kind of area. I do think market segmentation is strong. I think that because it's been done for a while, you're going to need like a lot more data, like a lot of big data, if anyone hasn't heard about that yet. But I think to make valid choices and to get funding, you're going to need to get a good sample size. Because I think that's important. But I think some of those areas, target marketing is an area that you probably see mentioned in textbooks, but probably with events, and maybe because of the sensitivity of the topic, you're not going to publish why things go well, because then if everyone does it, then but I think that's an area that really needs to go a bit further.
I agree, Aaron. I completely agree. I think it's linking to that. It's broader. It's event managers and directors being way more intentional as to what they want to get out of hosting the event. And I think that there's still a way to go for event managers to be more intentional in terms of what exactly is this event doing. And that is quite often ill-defined. They do it because it's a passion. I love food, or I love this and that and this and that. And events and festivals are way more jovial. They're more informal. You don't want to be too businessy about it, because this isn't home and work. This is leisure. This is something different. So applying these business ideas and of market segmentation and intentionality and strategic planning. Often event people don't want to do that as much as if you were in a conglomerate or anything like that, right? So it's hard to get people that are fundamentally doing this for fun, personal often reasons, to think quite intentional. And until they do that, then they'll never fully be able to segment the market, because they don't know necessarily often who or what they're doing. Do you agree with that in some sense?
Oh, definitely. Like, we obviously probably know that most festivals, like, they might have the greatest lineup. Like, we know Glastonbury in England, one of the biggest festivals. It sells out every year before they've even got the artists along, because people want to go because of the socialization and the atmosphere. It's not even the main reason for going, but everyone, and it's the same, that's been around. So even though the organizers might say, hey, we've got the best bands, everyone knows, almost like, but socialization could be more important. You're probably going to go and see a big band that you might want to see, but the whole atmosphere, we know, might be the sub reason that a lot of people are going. So,
primary reason. That's a really interesting point. Like, I guess the basic assumption here is that they go for the programming and for the specific, but actually, no, it's for the experience, which is actually, in some sense, a generic phenomenon. Is it's the people, grassroots, that make it and share that ideological communitas. I think that they refer to it, shared views of the world and all that sort of thing. Really good point. In terms of where we think the concept of segmentation is going in the future, Aaron, is there any kind of key trends that we need to keep our eyes on to some sense?
Well, I think I just talked about some of the areas. Like I said, like big data, but I also think, trends in the future. I have to confess, I'm not the greatest digital marketer myself, and social. I still listen to CDs. Maybe I'm just a bit old and stuff like that. But I think just predictive power of knowing things like looking at social media usage, things like targeting and communication, I've always had, when I come to segmentation, I've always had a bit of an interest in that trying to work out, if you're a manager, how we can best attract people, because we all know about that issue that you could have the greatest event there. People know it's great, but how do we actually get them to make the decision to purchase the ticket is I think becoming hard, because there are so many great. So I think that we're going to look for certain variables becoming more and more important. So as I said, the usage of social media, I think expenditure, knowing what people are interested in. I think a lot of, So I also said, that usage of big data, I think looking at trends is going to be very useful. So I think, as I said, event segmentation has been so good. It's very great. I think we know that groups are very different. I think we're working towards targeting specific areas. Once we've done that, and I think again as well, one thing I probably should have said, is that I think we've had a bit too much like cross-sectional, like research has primarily been done. Well, once we've done an event, we'll segment people and know out who our markets are and who to target in the future. Well, I think we need to do longitudinal. Are people continually coming back? What made them come? What can we change? Because I think one of the things with a lot of events, particularly with COVID, was, there's often that perception that we think events going to go on and on, decades and decades. And often some of them only have a minimal life stage, like 10 years. So I think we managers can use segmentation to evolve and work out which areas or what is it that's really interesting. I'll give you an example that one of the great festivals here in Queensland, we had the Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers food festival. And I know that it was a very residential food festival, but I think when they added food and wine to the event, it actually became like a major event, and it was really sustaining itself to both residents and tourists. So I think, so with segmentation, we've got to use it to know we can't rest on our laurels and kind of work out how things could be improved for the future. So,
That's a great point, to extend the life cycle of the festival. It's a really, really good point, actually. Really, really good point. And like we've seen with music festivals like Tomorrowland, for example, the EDM festival, which is, personal fave. They have branched off in 5, 6, 7, 8 different types of genres that are linked to EDM. So there's one having kind of symphony and orchestras that are playing EDM kind of music, attracting an entire new audience, a bit of a cross-section, obviously, between, classical and electronic. But it's fascinating to see without the data that suggests there's enough consumers for it, how would you ever know whether it's going to be a thing?
You're exactly right. Yeah,
it's really interesting. So, Aaron, we'll leave it there. But any resources that we've got, we'll put underneath the podcast. And so, if anyone is interested in further reading and including kind of some of the work that you've done, then that can definitely kind of follow them there, and maybe they can get in touch if they've got any questions about it. That'd be great.
Definitely. No, I love doing segmentation. I'll be honest and say I one of the first articles I got published in it was a journal in tourism management, was because I kind of found there was a gap in the textbook. Well, I was like, I would like to talk about this with my students in a class. So I just did a paper and it got published. And so I think that was the area I think, loving, liking to contribute to knowledge and practice, both teaching and research, always up for it. So,
That's great. Thanks, Aaron. So thanks for coming on Inside Events, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future to talk about some kind of specific aspects of market segmentation in the future. So thanks for coming on, and we'll see you again soon.